Hi, I'm Aaron Frank from Motorcyclist Magazine. I'm here with Zach Kortz, one of our test consultants, and this is part one of our class of 2012 sport bike test.
That's right. And we're not just testing anything, right, Aaron? We're testing the best Japan has to offer.
Yep, today is Japanese leader bikes. So we've got the four top-of-the-line 1000cc inline fours from Japan. We've got Kawasaki's Ninja ZX10R, the Yamaha YZF-R1, the Honda CBR1000RR, and over on the end, the Suzuki GSX-R1000.
And before we get to turn them loose on Chuckwalla Valley Raceway, we have some due diligence, right? We have to do quarter mile, top gear roll-ons, and some street time to see how their street manners are.
Exactly. We're going to start with the street ride, see how they behave in a real-world environment. Then we've got a full battery of performance tests to get us a baseline, and then we bring them back to the racetrack where they were born.
That's right, where they belong. So first things first, let's take them out on the street and see how they behave. So, here we are at the road. Not just any road, classic Southern California canyon, which is a perfect place for these guys to ride up and down and get a feel for these bikes and how they behave on the road. Now, truth be told, all these bikes can break the speed limit in first gear, so really what it comes down to is comfort and engine dynamic. The only real black sheep here is the Yamaha, which has this cross-plane firing order, Big Bang they call it. And it creates a great noise, it also creates nice engine feel for roads like these. Anyway, enough speculation from me. The numbers really make this test way too close to call. So let's find out what the staff thinks about how these race bikes are handling the street.
This one feels nice and swoopy and stable.
This is very stable though, all the way around.
It's because the suspension's
pointed,
working. You're in the middle of the stroke and it's using all of its suspension. When we get to the racetrack, it's going to feel really soft and we're going to blow through that suspension, but on the street.
All right, Aaron, day one in the books. How do you think it?
Well, we have 1 day of street testing down. We've put the bikes through everything, little highways, some mountain riding, twisties, and we're starting to draw some early conclusions about the bikes.
All right, so some winners, some losers. Give us some, let's start with the lowlights, I guess.
Okay, well, no real lowlights yet. They've all been working pretty well. The GSX-R stood out early on the highway. It's a really comfortable bike, great ergonomics, and easy to put some miles away on, but size kind of works against it a little bit.
And same thing with the Kawasaki, or what?
Yeah, not quite. I mean, the Kawasaki's working well. The bike was all new last year, and you can feel it. It feels really well put together. It's got a great, smooth, powerful motor. We're having some handling issues with it, but I think that we can work those out at the track.
Honda and Yamaha are looking good now then?
Yeah, both those bikes really stood out today, which was no surprise. The Honda was our 2008 Class of winner. They did a lot of work back then to centralize mass and make it work really well. They did more this year, lighter wheels, better forks, some different upgrades, and that bike is working really well. It's really easy to ride, especially when you get in the twisty stuff.
What sets the Yamaha apart from the Honda?
The Yamaha, again, another former Class of winner, our Class of 2009 winner. It's got a great motor. The cross-plane motor just is really charismatic, puts the power down really well. It's a lot of fun to use, and the suspension's working really well here on the street.
So, but the story's not over. We got 2 days of track time ahead of us.
Yeah, we're going to the racetrack tomorrow, and everything could be different there. I think that plush suspension we like on the street with the Yamaha, we might blow right through it on the track. And I think we tested the Kawasaki last year and it was a real standout on the track. I think when we add a little ride height, get the bike steering really well and take advantage of the traction control and the great motor, that bike's really going to come alive.
All right, so 2 bikes with traction control, 2 bikes without, 2 days of track time ahead of us.
Exactly. 2 more days on the track. We got a lot of work to do, and I think we're going to learn a lot more about these bikes.
And probably have a little fun along the way.
A lot of fun.
All right, let's do it. All right, Aaron, so Ari's taking runs on the GSX-R1000. Maybe you can tell everyone what we're learning here.
Yeah, we're at Chuckwalla's test strip just doing some performance testing. Drag strip really tells us a lot about the acceleration of the bike. Can learn a lot about the horsepower and the weight and how easy it is to put that power down.
Sure, so baseline numbers in a straight line, and then we'll go out on the track and we'll see how they handle everything put together.
Yep, exactly.
Right on, let's do it. So the drag strip offers the first glimpse of how these bikes truly perform when they're let loose. The numbers in this test especially are very, very close, so incremental gains and losses are amplified in the numbers. If a bike has very good clutch feel, even with less horsepower, it can perform better on a drag strip just because it makes the test rider feel more comfortable and can accelerate faster. In the case of this test, that's exactly what happened. The Kawasaki's clutch failed after only a few runs, and while the Yamaha stayed together, it didn't make Ari feel especially comfortable and made it difficult for him to get off the line and really get a good run down the runway. Even through all this, the Kawasaki went down the quarter mile at 10.14 seconds at 144.4 miles an hour. And while that's the second to slowest speed, it's the highest top speed of all of them, and certainly makes us wonder if the clutch had held together, how well it would have done. The Yamaha suffered the most from this, posting a time of 10.24 at 140 miles an hour, a result of poor clutch feel on the drag strip and the least overall horsepower. The Suzuki's first couple runs were dicey, but it finished strong with a 10.03 at 143.8 miles an hour, which is the second fastest of the group. The real surprise of the drag strip, though, was Honda's CBR1000, which posted a time of 10 seconds flat at 141.7 miles an hour. It managed to do all of this with the second least amount of horsepower, which is a true testament to mass centralization and supreme clutch feel, which helped it sprint down the track the fastest. So with the Honda posting the fastest quarter mile time and being one of the two bikes that impressed us the most on the street, it's going to take a real special performance at the racetrack from these other bikes to knock the Honda off the top of its perch. All right, so performance testing out of the way, what did we learn?
Yep, we just got the drag strip testing done on all four. The Honda and Suzuki really kind of came to the top here. Both of them turned good times in the low 10-second range and just kind of showed off a lot of mid-range torque and a really easy to use clutch, which is what's important at the drag strip.
Absolutely. So the Suzuki make a little bit of a comeback from the straight then?
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely in its element. Now we're going to take them over to the racetrack where we get to add handling into the mix and start to put all of this together.
You heard the man. Racetrack time. Well, if you've been watching so far, you've been thinking, enough already. Just take these bikes to a racetrack where they belong. So finally we're here. It's time.
Yep, we're out here at Chuckwalla Valley Raceway. This is part 3, the final portion of the class of 2012 testing. And this is where we get to play with the bikes in their natural environment, the racetrack.
That's right. So we're going to separate the wheat from the chaff with lap times, right?
Exactly.
And it's already too late. They're already turning lap times.
Exactly. We get the bikes out here, and this is where we can really play around with the acceleration and the handling. We get to feel the power on the straights and play with some of the agility in the corners. Got fresh Bridgestone R10 DOT race tires on, so we have great traction that's going to really allow us to exact the most performance out of these bikes.
All right. Speaking of which, so we had some winners, some losers so far in the competition, but this is really what separates it all. And frankly, I'm sick of talking about it.
Absolutely, me too. Let's get out there and ride.
Let's do it. On the track, the results were really surprising. It was a tale of two technologies, with the two bikes that have traction control bookending the two bikes that did not have traction control. The Yamaha surprisingly struggled on the racetrack, posting a best time of 1 minute 54.84. The traction control system was loved by all the riders, easy to use and intuitive, but for some reason the R1 just did not inspire confidence on the racetrack. The Honda and the Suzuki interestingly do not have traction control, but were great fun on the racetrack. Both have big, usable power bands and stable chassis that allowed both bikes to get around the racetrack very, very quickly. The Honda posted a best time of 154.13, just 0.2 quicker than the Suzuki's 154.33. Between these two bikes, it's really a tale of numbers. The Honda and the Suzuki have the third and second most amount of horsepower in this competition, respectively, and that really shows on the track. They're essentially two different versions of the same motorcycle built by two different companies. They're very, very hard to tell apart, and 0.2 of a second in a lap makes it difficult to pick between these two bikes. But in those 0.2, we can probably attribute it to Honda's mass centralization and bigger mid-range power. The big surprise at the racetrack was Kawasaki's ZX10R. With huge power, finally usable in an open circuit, and small chassis adjustments made at the racetrack made this bike really easy to turn and huge, huge fun. The ZX10 posted a best time of 153.14, nearly a clear second ahead of anyone else in this competition. Overall, the track portion of the competition proved to be a huge success. These bikes are so hard to tell apart that taking to the track really separates the wheat from the chaff. And in this case, Kawasaki ZX10 came out on top. Okay, Aaron, so we're intimately familiar with all these bikes now. We've ridden them on the racetrack, we've spent a lot of miles, so let's see how it panned out. What do you say?
All right, we just spent 2 days at Chuckwalla Valley Raceway. We did some setup adjustment on all 4 of the bikes, and it really brought some of them alive. We stuck on some sticky Bridgestone R10 tires, and we just burned them up. Suzuki's bike was great on the racetrack. It really came alive. Very easy bike to ride, very neutral steering, great front end, a lot of front end feedback, and it was just a really easy bike for everyone to ride. Unfortunately, it was held back a little bit by horsepower. It was down on power, and the power that was there was kind of biased a little bit towards the top end. The Honda impressed us on the street and continued to impress at the racetrack. It's got a great chassis. It's a bike that everyone goes fast on. It's really easy to ride. Also has an awesome motor, a ton of mid-range power, but that kind of worked against it at the racetrack. It was a little harder to control because that one doesn't have traction control like some of the other.
But the Yamaha does have traction control, and pretty good traction control at that.
Yeah, Yamaha does have traction control, the best traction control of the bunch. It's got more levels of sensitivity, and it activates differently in a way that's a little smoother, so it's really easy to put the power of that cross-plane motor down.
Right.
Unfortunately, it had a little abrupt throttle pickup off a closed throttle that kind of was messing with us in the middle of some long corners, and the front end feedback wasn't quite as good as on the other three bikes.
Right. Whereas the Kawasaki really came together on the track at all.
Yeah, the Kawasaki was kind of transformed. We adjusted the chassis, jacked the back end up a little bit, and the handling just really snapped into focus. And also being at the racetrack, we could take advantage of that amazing motor. That bike makes a ton of power, and on the racetrack you can really get the revs up and use that power. Great traction control system that allows you to put it down, and the best brakes of the bunch going into the corners. So all of it added up to lap times that were about 1.5 seconds faster than the rest of the bunch, and with considerably less drama for the rider too.
It doesn't get any easier for the Kawasaki from here on out though.
No, we're not done with the Kawasaki yet. We'll be back here in a few weeks for our class of 2012 European sport bike testing. We're going to shoot out the best from Ducati, BMW, Aprilia, and MV Agusta. Then we're going to take the winner from that mix and put it up against the Kawasaki and see how it stacks up.
Right, tantalizing mix. So hard road for the Kawasaki, but good viewing.
Absolutely.
All right, well, stay tuned for that and we'll see you next time.